Okay, guys, the main causes of World War I, militarism and alliances. First of all, there are four MAIN causes, four main causes of World War I. These include militarism, alliances, imperialism, and nationalism. Each of these played a role in causing World War I. But none of them on its own would have caused the war. Militarism was one of these causes. In the years before the war, countries began to militarize. They aggressively prepared for war. For many years, countries were increasing their militaries, building new weapons, gathering more troops, and moving their troops to places to fight. Countries made battle plans, and weapons were loaded. World War I brought new weapons to the battlefield. One of them was poison gas. I have a moving image on the next slide to show you that. Poison gas, called mustard gas, it caused horrible chemical burns. Another fairly new weapon was the machine gun. This was as useful as 60 rifles. New naval technology included the dreadnought battleship, and in response, Germany created its own powerful battleships. Okay. Countries began using airplanes in World War I. In all, the size and power of weapons got bigger and bigger. Here we have poison gas being used. Okay, these troops have gas masks on, but they had used poison gas to make the enemy leave this area. Here's some troops releasing gas. If the wind starts blowing the wrong way, you're going to gas your own people. That's not good. Here we see the use of the Maxim machine gun. I think that's a Maxim. These are new technologies brought to war. In the year 1870, European countries spent about $120 million on their militaries. Okay. By the beginning of the war, okay, in 1914, the year Gavrilo Princip was killed, they had spent 4 times as much. Okay. Countries had they also ramped up their numbers of troops. Okay. These are people lined up, ready to get their glory, but to take part in making their country great, right? In the early 1900s, young men in Europe couldn't wait to march. They dreamt of glory, thinking that they would march with all the weapons and things they needed, thinking they'd wear a dashing uniform to meet their country's enemies with honor. Every country thought that fighting wars was part of what made their nation great. This was militarism. Here's what the guy thought his life was going to be like. This is where he lived for months and months at a time. He ate there, he slept there, he cried there, he fought there. Okay, so question number 1, what does militarize mean? That's actually up here on slide 2. Militarism is when a nation aggressively prepares for war. I'm not really spelling very well today. Number 2, what were 2 new weapons brought to the battlefield in World War I? Well, that was that whole third slide here, right? Okay, many new weapons. I gave you 2 good examples: poison gas, okay, machine guns, dreadnoughts, airplanes. Okay. These are all examples of new technology that was brought to World War I for the first time. Question 3, how much had the armies of Europe grown from 1870 until the beginning of the war? In 1870, they spent about 120 million. By 1914, they had spent 4 times as much. Countries were behaving as if they wanted war. Okay. And what year did the war begin? It says right here, by the beginning of the war in 1914. How did people think about war before the war began? How do these people feel about war? Okay. They couldn't wait to march. They were excited for war. Okay. They couldn't wait to march. They dreamt of glory. They thought that fighting wars was part of what made their country great. Okay, so that's militarism. Another reason why World War I was a world war and not a small war between Austria and Serbia was because of alliances. Alliances are agreements between countries to fight for each other if attacked. In the time just before World War I, European nations worried about their neighbors, and so they formed new alliances with each other for protection. The alliances that helped cause World War I began with the Triple Alliance. Around 1880, Germany made a treaty with Austria-Hungary, knowing that they had a common enemy in France and perhaps with Russia. Later, Italy joined in the Triple Alliance in hopes of protecting themselves from France and Russia. In response to the Triple Alliance, France and Russia began their own alliance. This was called the Double Entente. And by 1907, Britain joined the alliance, and that made it the Triple Entente. Okay. Entente means friendship or arrangement or agreement in French. Soon, nearly every area in the world was part of these two alliances. For example, many Africans were pulled into the war to fight for Britain's side. And if a country wasn't part of this alliance, they were probably part of a larger empire. You might wonder what Spain was doing at the time. They were not participating. They were able to keep themselves out of it. They did not have a problem for the most part. But we'll see where that is, it doesn't stay true. Here we have a graphic. We can see over time the Triple Entente. I think, there we go. The Three Emperors League, the Dual Alliance between Germany and Austria-Hungary, the Triple Alliance that now includes Italy, the Franco-Russian Military Convention, now the Triple Entente. So we can see how the two sides lined up. Early on, of course, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Russia did have an alliance. As we talk about World War II, we will again visit how Germany and Russia are allies, but they seem to constantly stab each other in the back. So that is a theme between those two nations, mostly because Russia can't decide what they want to do. Because of the large alliances in Europe and elsewhere, any attack by one country would set off a huge series of fights between countries on the opposing sides. Eventually, an attack did occur. a Serbian terrorist killed a member of the Austrian royal family. We learned about that in the last section. Austria sought to punish the Slavic people of Serbia for housing terrorists. Russia stepped in to defend their fellow Slavs, the Serbians. World War I was underway. And here we have, each of the countries that entered the war and why. We talked about that in the last lesson. But we know that alliances caused World War I to be a world war. In your essay, the word chain reaction should probably occur, right? Here we have Serbia, little Serbia, who's, I suppose not innocent, right? One of their people decided to kill the heir to the Austrian throne, but Serbia says, if you touch me, I'll, and then Austria grabs a hold of him and says, if you make a move, and then Russia says, hey, don't hit that little fella. And Germany says, hey, Austria's my friend. And then France gets involved with Germany, and Britain, is like, hey, wait up, I want to join this fight as well. We don't see Italy in this cartoon. We won't see Italy. We won't see Italy in an important way in the war, so that's sort of appropriate. All right. For questions, why did nations form alliances? What was the purpose of forming the alliances? And of course, this is going to come from our first slide. Okay. They formed new alliances with each other for protection. What were the names of the two large alliances? Well, the first is the Triple Alliance. Okay, that was the German team, right? The Triple Alliance. And then the other was the French team, the Triple Entente, the gray team here. Okay. Who was on each team? Okay. So on the Triple Entente, we had France, Russia, and Britain. But first, before that, we had the Triple Alliance, which consisted of Germany, her pal Austria, and her other pal Italy. Question, why did Austria enter the war? It's right here. Austria entered the war to punish Serbia for terrorism. Russia entered the war to what? Well, Russia entered the war to defend the Serbians, the Slavic people in Serbia. And we remember from the last lesson where we talked about pan-Slavism. We talked about how Russians viewed all other Slavs as sort of part of them, part of their country. War to back up Austria-Hungary. Okay, they had an alliance. Germany entered the war. They entered the war to back up Austria-Hungary. That's what their alliance said they would do, and that's what they did. They entered the war. Why did France enter the war? Well, France They had entered into their alliance because they knew they were going to have to face Germany again. But they entered the war because now Russia was involved, right? That's not what the work I'm looking for. Where's the one I'm looking for? Oh, it's down here. Um, France attacked Germany because they knew that Germany was going to attack them anyway. Why did Britain enter the war? Well, Britain, they were outraged by the invasion of Belgium. Remember, Germany, go back to a map here, Germany goes through Belgium here to attack France, and Belgium wasn't involved. They were not part of an alliance. They were sort of not choosing teams, and Britain found this outrageous. And you can see here how a chain reaction, a chain of events, okay, one thing led to the other, to the other, to the other, to the other, because all of these countries had these interlocking alliances. Okay? On the one team, we had Germany and Austria and Italy. That's the Triple Alliance. And on the other team, we had France, Russia, and Britain. So this is how militarism and alliances helps to cause World War I.